When it comes to remarkable feats, Carlo Ancelotti isn't short of them. And I know what you're probably thinking, Adrian, the season isn't even over yet. How can you say that he accomplished something remarkable already this season? Because even in looking at the season thus far, what Ancelotti has managed to do has been incredible, given the constant sticks that have been tossed in his spokes, so to speak. At the beginning of the season, there were some Madridistas who, with the rumors of him potentially leaving at the end of the 23-24 campaign, thought that perhaps it would be best to move on to someone sooner rather than later. Couple that with the personnel issues Real had, and the season was looking a bit glum in the summer of 2023. But this is also one of the best managers in the history of the game that we're speaking about. And Ancelotti proved once again that he can be versatile. Very, very versatile. Only losing twice this season, and both times were at the Metropolitano. It all goes very, very clown show for Real Madrid when their defense shows up at the Metropolitano. Well, again, only at the halfway point, but we'll look at this impressive first half of the season. Hello, I'm Adrian, and I hope you guys are doing well today. With Ancelotti earning a contract renewal until 2026, even with his previous achievements, he's managed to defeat allegations that he was past it after some poor spells at Everton, Napoli, and Bayern. Poor by his own standards, of course. So let's look at why this season has been such a massive challenge for him, and yet he's met it head on thus far without a massive drop in performances. If you're new around here and you like what you see during this video, why not consider subscribing? Stick around for another one, you know? Now, before we get to the loss of a certain striker, there were a couple of losses at the opposite end of the pitch that, when combined with the loss of a world-class striker, could have derailed the season before it even began. On August 13th, it was announced that centre-back Militão would be out for what was likely to be the majority of the season. Militão was one of 4 designated centre-backs natural centre-backs in the squad for Real Madrid, leaving them a bit thin in that position before the season had even begun. Rudiger, Alaba, and the fantastic servant to the club that is Nacho Fernandes were the 3 central defenders that Ancelotti would be working with at the beginning of the season. As we'll see later, despite suggesting a signing, no defender was brought in for Ancelotti, and he didn't make a fuss about it. However, part of the reason for the lack of signings could have come down to the fact that days prior, before Militão had ruptured his ACL in their La Liga opener, goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois injured himself in training. Injured himself very, very badly, in fact. Back in 2019, Courtois had also suffered a major injury in training, rupturing his Achilles tendon, so he's not unfamiliar with how a potentially season-ending injury feels. Hence, on August 10th, 2023, many media outlets reported that Courtois was seen crying as he left Real Madrid's training. And sure enough, it was later confirmed that Courtois had indeed torn his ACL. Initially, there was hope that he would be back in April, assuming all went well in his rehab. But it was later divulged that Courtois had also suffered damage to his meniscus, not just the ACL, thus complicating his recovery and extending his time off the pitch, a season-ending injury. In December of 2023, Courtois confirmed that he will not be ready in time for Euro 2024, barring any medical miracle. He told Belgian news outlet Sporza, quote, "Due to the injury, there will be no European Championships for me anyway. If I'm lucky, I can play another match in May, but then you can never be 100% ready for a big tournament." It goes without saying just how big of a loss this was for Ancelotti and Madrid. Despite a shaky first season, once Courtois had settled with Los Blancos, he went on to become one of the best keepers in the world, a true match-winning keeper who had bailed out Real Madrid's defense on quite a few occasions, papered over the cracks in some ways. Just look to the 21-22 campaign where Courtois was playing out of his mind. In particular, look at the match-winning saves, plural, he made in the Champions League final against Liverpool. Back in the summer, Courtois' backup Andre Lunen's reputation was a bit up in the air. He was still seen as a great prospect for the future, but wasn't necessarily deemed fit to take the reins full-time from Thibaut Courtois. So who did Real Madrid sign? After a few passes at other keepers like Yassine Bono and some others, they landed on Kepa Arrizabalaga. He had some nice moments, but some concerning ones as well. So basically the exact same as at Chelsea, leading to plenty of Madrid supporters to say Lunin was equal to, if not preferred to Kepa. So immediately on the back foot with your center back position, which would get worse by the way, and without your top keeper, who happens to be one of the best in the world. Not an easy start to the season, right? Prior to the issues in defense to kick off the season, there was also a certain Saudi football revolution going on, with the Saudi Pro League, by way of their favored 4 clubs, trying to tempt away as many big names as they could. One of those big names was, of course, the 2022 Ballon d'Or winner and club captain for Real Madrid, Karim Benzema. Almost 14 years exactly from Karim Benzema had joined Real Madrid from Lyon, it was announced that the Frenchman would be joining Al Ittihad of the Saudi Pro League rather than negotiate a new contract with Real Madrid or continue his career elsewhere in Europe. Now, without going into the details of how poorly that move has gone for both Benzema and Al Ittihad, really, where it left Ancelotti and Real Madrid was in a funny place. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And the Mbappe saga was rolling on once again, with Real seemingly for the last time saving a spot for Kylian for one more season, with his contract due to come to a close with PSG at the end of the upcoming season, or this season. Or so he said. I mean, who knows with that guy at this point, right? Anything can happen. Maybe he'll sign a lifetime contract with PSG. I don't know. Anyway, with a massive Benzema-shaped hole in the squad and Real insisting they wouldn't sign anyone in July and August beyond the deals they had already made, the striker position was one of the big worries. In Ancelotti's first season back at Real Madrid, when he won both the league and the Champions League, Benzema was playing like an alien. Not only scoring tons of goals, but setting up his teammates, like Vinicius in particular, as well. When Benzema wasn't there, as was the case for a couple of weeks in the winter of the 21-22 campaign, Real Madrid didn't look like themselves, and their results suffered a bit. Not a lot, but a bit. And so, with Joselu coming in, a guy who scored goals for Espanyol in the past, but didn't offer all that Benzema did as far as in the build-up and lethal finishing, the question was, of course, where would the goals come from for Real? I mean, with hindsight, it's easy to point to Jude Bellingham and say, yeah, well, of course they would come from Bellingham. But at this point, Bellingham hadn't always been used in such an advanced role at Borussia Dortmund. He had only ever scored 24 goals across 132 appearances for Dortmund. At Madrid, he's already scored 17. Nobody saw that coming. Or for other goals, you could look to Vinicius, who thrived alongside Benzema previously. Was he ready to step up? Well, regardless, Ancelotti said that he wasn't worried about the deficit that Benzema's absence would leave. Many people, including myself, admittedly, hey man, you gotta admit when you're wrong, right? But a lot of people thought that this was a bit of a shaky foundation to stand on. And when you coupled that with the absence of Militão and Courtois, plus the fog surrounding whether Ancelotti would take the Brazil job, a lot of Real supporters were looking at this season rather cynically. Throughout his career, Carlo Ancelotti has favored the 4-3-3 system. So when he took over for Zinedine Zidane in 2021, it was easy to continue the trend. Granted, Zidane did play with formations a bit as he dealt with a near record amount of injuries in his final season with Real. That man was getting torched by injuries. But still, he mostly, when everyone was healthy, would play a 4-3-3. Anyway, Ancelotti was part of the Church of 4-3-3, and with Benzema in the squad, it worked out for him. With Joselu, a guy who offers a different skill set than Benzema, you'd expect that Joselu wouldn't drop deeper to get on the ball and spray passes around as Benzema would, or combine as well with Vinicius. In fact, it was mooted that Joselu wouldn't even be a starter for Ancelotti, so who would play centrally? Nobody. Well, actually, kind of more like two people, as Vinicius and Rodrigo would play as a duo, with Ancelotti moving to a 4-4-2 formation with a diamond midfield. Some called it a 4-3-1-2 with Rodrigo and Vini up top, with 3 midfielders being a flat base in the midfield, and then Bellingham in between the strikers and the midfield, joining in on the attack. While Vinicius and Rodrigo struggled to start the season off, Bellingham thrived in the attack, often scoring late winners for Real Madrid, he made that a habit, to ensure their winning start to the season. Hell, they even defeated Girona, the team they are fighting for the La Liga lead with, 3-0 in Catalonia. With Rodrigo in poor form, Joselu replaced him in the attack, and Bellingham continued to shine. Rodrigo would later find his form, but anyway, it took a wake-up call for Real Madrid in order for Ancelotti to make his final change to Madrid's setup, an adjustment which would bring more balance to his side. Playing against Atletico Madrid on the 24th of September, Real were undone by 2 quick goals in the first 18 minutes from their cross-city rivals. Cross being the key word here. And how did those goals come about? The first 4 minutes in saw Real Madrid playing incredibly narrow, leaving the flank wide open for Samuel Lino to get a cross in, and Morata flicked it past Kepa. The second, another cross from the wide area, Griezmann left alone to nod it past the keeper, and the third in their 3-1 loss, You guessed it, another cross from Madrid's right, where all three of Atleti's goals came from, by the way, and Morata slipped away from his man once again for the goal. After the match, Ancelotti said, quote, "They opened our eyes. We were weak in the crosses, and then we fixed it by keeping the center backs in the penalty area and with the help of the midfielders closing down the opposition's fullbacks." From the 4-4-2 diamond, Ancelotti made a change. Real Madrid would still play with a 4-4-2, but now with more of a box shape in the midfield, as Real Madrid correspondent Guillermo Rai noted. This leads to Valverde and Bellingham pushing wide to help cover the flanks more, as previously the fullbacks were dragged wide, causing the center backs to follow to adjust accordingly, leaving spaces for opposing strikers to exploit in the middle, as Atletico did. And since then, looking through Real Madrid's La Liga matches, they have played 13, scored 29, an average of 2.2 goals per game, and have only conceded 5 times in that stretch. As Ancelotti said, quote, "We fixed the mistakes in the derby against Atletico, and although there are important injuries, the team is now very solid at the back." Again, except for when they went back to the Metropolitano, and the goals they suffered were, once again, very clown show. Speaking of injuries, he wasn't out of the woods back in the summer. First, there was Arda Güler, a highly touted young Turkish attacker who Ancelotti could have made use of in the early part of the season, and who has only recently returned to the Real Madrid fold and has impressed in that short time. I did a video on him, why he is seemingly destined for great things should he continue on his current trajectory. That's linked below if you're interested. Then there was Vinicius, one of their best attackers. He was snuffed out, and while he wasn't injured, Rodrigo's poor form to start the season felt as if he wasn't really there anyway. But my word, has he ever found his form since that rough patch. Rodrigo has been fantastic. Then there was the double hit of Camavinga and Tchouaméni getting injured, 2 players that occupy midfield, or left back in Camavinga's case more often than not, as well as a potential cover for center back and Tchouaméni. With those two out at the same time, Ancelotti had to get creative and play Kroos and Valverde as kind of a double pivot, leading to more opportunities for Brahim Diaz and more advanced areas on the midfield. Diaz is a bit polarizing. At Milan, he would have flashes of brilliance, but never felt like he hit his top gear, or at the very least, couldn't sustain that top gear for very long. That said, Ancelotti has been able to pull some superb performances out of him, scoring important goals in the last couple of months, both in the Champions League, La Liga, Copa del Rey, and the Supercopa. On top of it all, remember how thin Real were at the back to begin with? Real were clearly cursed by injury demons this season, or perhaps this is just the natural outcome of way too many matches in the football calendar these days. A month ago, on December 17th, David Alaba was the latest ACL tear victim. Maybe someone has a Real Madrid voodoo doll and they keep popping pins in the knees. I don't know, but it's really bizarre to see this many ACL injuries in one team. A thought that Ancelotti echoed, actually, saying, quote, "We're very sad to lose another player. I've never seen 3 cruciate ligament injuries in 4 months. It's incredible, but there's nothing we can do." But the only thing he can do is exactly what he has done all season long when dealing with the losses of important figures in various positions: adapt. Ancelotti has become a beloved figure not just amongst supporters but amongst the club hierarchy for being so easy to work with. He may ask for a signing, but when told no, he doesn't moan and complain in the media about not being able to get one. He does what a manager is supposed to do: manage and find a solution instead of complaining until you get handed one. That solution was Tchouaméni playing as a center back. He found a solution to get revenge against Atletico Madrid in the Supercopa. Real destroyed Barcelona in the Supercopa final. The goofy goals came out at the Metropolitano in the Copa del Rey, and they lost there, as you know.
They're banging their heads against the wall. And we can't beat this guy! We can't beat this guy! We're trying everything!
And they are not allowing Girona to pull away easily at the top of the table. Yes, having a strong squad is absolutely helpful in these scenarios, but we have enough evidence from various clubs across Europe at this point that managing a group of very talented players is not as easy as some detractors would have you believe. It takes a very special kind of man management to pull it off. I even did an entire video on that and how managing top squads and having some longevity in that position has been underrated far too often these days. Again, they aren't even at the business end of the season, but what Ancelotti has managed to achieve thus far is still impressive. the loss of Benzema, the 1-2 punch of losing your world-class keeper and a top center back. Later, you lose another center back. You find a way to make your midfield signing a scoring threat, while losing multiple midfielders at a time, and you change the system that you yourself and Madridistas are most comfortable with, and still have lost just 2 matches all season to the same opponent in the same state. I don't need to say the stadium's name again, do I? Right? All things considered, that's still pretty impressive. He has his second highest points per match average in his career, second only to his first stint with Real Madrid. Should Real Madrid go on to win some significant silverware come the end of the 23-24 season, then for me, it will be one of Carlo Ancelotti's most impressive seasons yet. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, then let me know by dropping a like and feeding that hungry algorithm. Beyond that, I want to thank you for spending your time with me. Funny time to sniffle. Apologies for the sniffles and the voice in this one. I'm not feeling great at the moment, but we carry on, right? Thanks again, guys. I'm Adrian, and we'll see you in the next video. Ciao.